expertly consciousness transforming podcast for exceptional 21st century living. Folks, we have a show today that's really different. I do spirit release, but we're going to be talking about spirit marriage. We're going to be speaking with Dr. Megan Rose. Her book title is Spirit Marriage: Intimate Relationships with Otherworldly Beings. Now, this is going to be interesting for everybody involved. So sit back, take some notes, and I want to warn you beforehand. This book is not, the information in this book is not something that you just play with. Okay. It's kind of like Kundalini. If you don't know what you're doing, kind of don't go there. Okay. Because you're going to invite more issues upon yourself. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break through the blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that is holding you back. But you guys know I always ask that question: are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. A bit about me for my new listeners: intuitive since birth. I'm a third generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience supporting people to break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I am the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind, body, spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. My clients tell me that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website, and that's moniquechapman.com. And I invite you to like me on Facebook and follow me on LinkedIn. And folks, September 23rd through the 25th, 2022, I'm going to be one of the participants at the Wisdom of Reiki conference in Rhinebeck, New York at the Omega Institute. If you're a Reiki practitioner and you're in the area, please join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, we're going to have a lot of fun. So all you have to do is just buy a ticket, and we'd love to meet you. Come up and say hi. Okay, so my guest today, Megan Rose, Ph.D., has a doctorate in East-West psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies and a master's degree in religion and society from the Graduate Theological Union. She is an initiated ceremonial magician, Shakti Tantric practitioner, and senior seer in the House of Faery Seership Institute. She served as an ordained interfaith minister and psycho-spiritual counselor and is the executive director of the Entheosis Institute. You can check her out at her website, and she's got two. First one is spiritmarriage.com, spiritmarriage.com. And the second one is drmeganrose.com, drmeganrose.com. Welcome, Megan.
It's wonderful to be here, Monique. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on. I mean, your book, it's almost, when I looked at it, it's like, spirit marriage. This doesn't, make sense to me because people are calling me daily to get rid of spirits. And here you are talking about joining with one. So what is spirit marriage so that everybody's on the same page?
Yeah, spirit marriage is when a human steps into a bonded, sometimes intimate relationship with an otherworldly being. And I use the term spirit just because that's kind of the biggest, broadest catch-all. But really what we're talking about are deities, angels, sometimes beloved dead, elementals, fairy beings. I mean, it really runs the gamut of different types of, typically not in a physical body, but there's exceptions for that. Beings that have their source in something other than our mundane human consciousness, because the beloved dead might have been humans at one point, but
Mm-hmm.
deities maybe not. So
Oh,
it's a
well,
really broad.
okay, before you go further, explain to me about the beloved dead. Who
Mhm.
are they?
They can be ancestors, they can be sort of elevated dead, ascended masters, or sometimes your own partner in life crosses over and you stay in a relationship with them.
Hmm. Okay. Very, very interesting. So why this information to come out and why now? I mean, everybody's blossoming sexuality, whether it's LGBTQI, XYZ, and my son's gay, so y'all don't get on me. Everybody's exploring, binary, not binary. You have your pronouns and all this. So why now? Is there an energy that's pushing this out into the world now?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think, I'm first of all, I should say spirit marriage has been known as many different things. The first evidence we see of it is in textual evidence is back in ancient Mesopotamia with the Sumerian sacred marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's been known as different things: God spousing, indwelling, merging, etc. And it's seen really transculturally uh, in so many different cultures and so many different practices. I think it's coming out right now because it's time and it's needed. And what I talk about in my book is how one of the side effects, or one of the boons, the benefits of spirit marriage, is a kind of activation and evolutionary uh, edge, or sort of
Mm-hmm.
the for the human species. And we see these stories, right, where these um otherworldly beings come. I'm thinking of like the account in Genesis where the sons of God, the angels, saw the daughters of men and they took unto them wives, is what the scripture roughly says. And
Mm-hmm.
they spawned the Nephilim. They spawned this sort of next
Mm-hmm.
generation of the human species that had
Mm-hmm.
capacity that the previous generations didn't necessarily have, or it sort of precipitated or blossomed these innate nascent qualities. And you see this again and again, like with the fairy marriage and some of the Celtic traditions. The marriage to the fae will often bestow different gifts like prophecy or the charismata. So, I think, and certainly many of my co-researchers, the people I interviewed in the book, seemed to uphold this, that it's coming forward right now to be more part of our popular awareness, because
Mm-hmm.
we need to co-create with the many different intelligences here on earth, and sort of step out of our anthropocentric worldview and step into more of a beloved relationship with planet, with cosmos, with each other. And that hopefully will be the tipping point that will save us from extinction.
We need something. We
Mm-hmm.
truly need something. Now, you grew up in a Pentecostal Christian atmosphere. Did that energy because they can be quite active and vocal and speak in tongues and all of that, did that open the door for you to accept spirit marriage?
I think so. Growing up Pentecostal, I like to say I sort of came out of the womb and was filled with the Holy Spirit. I talk about in my story in the book is about how, I, less than a year old, was baptized in, the Holy Spirit. And that really shifted and altered me, and kind of like to say I was like this child running around with her pants on fire, full of all of this ecstasis energy. And that really placed, when you could look at it as like that placed this powerful spirit, what in the Pentecostal tradition they called the Holy Spirit, but what
Hmm.
later I would understand to be like the Shakti, the divine feminine, the goddess, really front and center in my body from a very early age. And so um really understanding the inner mechanic of that from my childhood years helped me later on in my 30s when these otherworldly beings began to sort of ring my doorbell, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? This feels really interesting. This feels a lot like the Holy Spirit, but not. So that definitely helped in my inquiry.
Okay. Question. You said a little bit ago that it's God spousing. So is this something similar to what the Catholic nuns do?
Yes. So that's what I
Okay.
think is so fascinating about this, because the Catholic nuns, there's a whole order known as the Brides of Christ, and they put rings on and they take vows, and they marry Jesus. They marry the
Mm-hmm.
Christ being. And um, in fact, one of the folks that I was talking to in one of these interviews was saying, yeah, I grew up Catholic. And I remember in Catholic school asking the nun, I saw she had a wedding ring on, and I said, who are you married to? And she said, I'm married to Jesus. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of traditional, mainstream, quote unquote, religion as well. It's just, I like to say it's sort of hidden in plain sight, sort of the thing we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, it's edgy, it's a little weird, but it's there.
hmm I want to go back in history for a moment and talk about Ida Craddock. She seems
Mhm.
to be pretty well versed in this, what, back in the 1800s?
Late 19th century, early 20th. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Ida was a theosophist and a spiritualist, which was very, very popular at that time, spiritualism. And she was a single woman who had a spirit marriage to an angel. She said he was an angel. And she was one of the first proponents of women's sexuality, and advocating things like women should be able to say no if they don't feel like having sex with their husband, and women should actually enjoy having sex. Like
Ooh.
these are radical ideas, right, that
Uh-huh.
she's talking about. And so she had this knowledge of sexuality, and people were kind of like scratching their heads, well, you're single, how do you know this? And she said, well, I have this spirit spouse who comes to me and teaches me these things, this angel that I'm married to. And so she ended up doing some really lovely research in her treatise, Heavenly Bridegrooms, which was one of the first things that I found when I started researching this, was the Heavenly Bridegrooms tract that's widely available online. And so she had done some of the different research throughout the ages, looking at it, and I sort of picked up her torch and took that and made a much larger cultural and psychospiritual survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In your book, you talk about losing religion, your descent into the underworld. What do you mean by underworld? Because it seems like you're putting religion like in heaven and the underworld in hell.
Well, I mean, I think that losing my religion, I think, may have been, and my religion was the Pentecostal
Crystal.
Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
right,
Mm-hmm.
which is very much about, like, all of Christianity is very upper world kind of orientation, and the underworld is the bad place or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the process of losing that religious framework, I had what I call an endarkenment experience, which was
Mm-hmm.
going into the depths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going into the rooted underworld area, which is, not a place of fear or gnashing of teeth or whatever. It's like, it's our rich, loamy soil, right? Where the ancestors live, and deeper than that, where the fairy people live. So you mentioned my training in, fairy seership, and that's really what that was all about. Was, Carl Jung says a tree can only grow as high as the roots grow deep. So that was me
Mm-hmm.
sort of growing my roots really deep, and really deprogramming myself from all of that religious dogma around, fear of the underworld, fear of the dark.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting that so many of us these days are deprogramming ourselves from, strict religion tenets and dogma that,
Mhm.
we probably should have never been following in the
Mhm.
very first place. Now, you call yourself an erotic mystic. What is that?
Yeah. Well, I think of
Sounds
erotic.
juicy.
It can be, yeah. Erotic mysticism or sacred sexuality is understanding that our vital force, you mentioned Kundalini, right? The
Hmm.
vitality of our body is just as valid and useful and potent of a doorway into our spiritual awakening as any other of the potential doorways. And in fact, an embodied spirituality that embraces the fullness of our eros, our vital energy,
Hmm.
really is, I think, the type of spirituality that heals the nervous system and that reconnects us, like I said earlier, to our right place and our right relationship on this planet, which is not as apex predator and colonizer or dominator, right? But as
Hmm.
beloved, right, in co-creative relationship with the planet.
Okay. So say someone's looking for, a spirit marriage. How do you go about it? I mean, do you have to go through a certain initiation? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, it really depends. I mean, there's so many different traditions that you could look into that practice spirit marriage. And I talk about, you know, in the book, I interviewed 9 different practitioners from 7 different traditions that actively practice spirit marriage. Um, but I always tell folks that, if you have a spirit that is ringing your doorbell and like happened with me and saying, I want to marry you, there are 3 things that we want to establish. And that is to do this in a safe and kind of sane way. So there's the discernment practice of really knowing, like, who is the spirit that I'm talking to, and do I know, like, and trust them enough to want to pursue a relationship with them. And that can involve, divinatory work. For me, it involved having really amazing mentors and spirit workers that I could go to help me discern the spirits for
Hmm.
myself. And then the devotional practice of getting to know them, and what could be maybe thought of as the falling in love practice, where your that devotional energy is, like dating. You don't just meet somebody hopefully and say, we're going to get married tomorrow. You spend time getting to know them and
Hmm.
really understanding if this is a spirit that you want to devote, because just because a spirit wants to marry you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say yes. It and there can be issues with a flat out no, but we do get to
Hmm.
negotiate because we bring things to the relationship that they don't, and they bring things to the relationship that we don't. So discernment, devotion, and then discipline, and that's just like showing up, right? Spending
Hmm.
time doing the practices, the rituals, the whatever that you develop to build that spirit muscle.
Mm. Okay. So how do we get past the trickster? Say, we've meditated, we've consulted, we've done everything, and the spirit that we agreed to be with truly turns out to be a trickster, not uncommon from human relationships.
Well, yeah,
So,
I mean, I think that's a great point, Monique. How well do we ever know any one person? And
mhm,
ideally, with these beings, we're not talking about entities that have the same sort of hangups that a human would have, but there are a number of people in the god spousing heathenry community that are married to Loki, who is traditionally understood to be a trickster being. And so that, it takes a certain kind of person to hang with that, and to work with a trickster type deity, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. You just kind of want to know what you're getting into, which is why I really encourage caution. Like, don't rush into these things. Spend some time getting to know who you're working with, and really have a community of people around you that can support you. And whether that's in one of the lineage-based traditions, like a Vodou tradition, or the heathenry practices, or the West African Dagara lineage practices, merges with spirit beings. Whether you find a tradition that has a really amazing community that can support and uphold you, or whether you get you sort of assemble, like I did, your support system team of people that really help. I had a transpersonal psychologist that I was working with, and my Faery Seer mentor, Orion Foxwood, and had my Shakta Tantric guru teacher that I was working with. I had a whole constellation of people really helping me manage and understand what I was going through for the, 10 some odd years. And it took me 10 years to finally say yes to the spirit and agree to the marriage.
Okay. Now, what if you find that, you're married to the spirit and it's 2, 3, 5, 20 years down the road, and you're like, no, this isn't for me. I want a divorce. Is that possible?
I would say that it sort of depends on the spirit and the level of the merge and the process that you've gone through. Some of these entities, we kind of graft with them and become something new, and that's certainly true for some of the fairy practices, at least within the fairy seership tradition. But in other cases, Caroline Kenner, who I interviewed for my book, is a witchcraft practitioner, and she talks about divorcing a spirit. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And in her case, the spirit that she had married to, she hadn't known really well. And so, and it ended up being kind of a unwanted, problematic dynamic. And so she went to a spirit that was sort of like a pay grade above the one that she was married to, and was like, this isn't working out. I want a divorce. And so the divorce was granted that way.
So how do you know the divorce is granted? I mean, what if the spirit that you're with really has strong feelings for you and they don't want the divorce, just like sometimes humans don't want the divorce, but the other party does? Spirits can do things that other humans aren't legally allowed to do to you.
Yeah. Well, that's when people come see you, Monique. that's when you go and find a really amazing depossession shaman or spirit worker that's very well versed in unbinding. And we want to have really good protection practices and gridding and sealing practices and all of the different things that help us going into this, beef up our discernment. But there's always cases where maybe we're just, for a while there, I like to say I was sort of lit up like a Christmas tree on the etheric astral planes, and all these spirits were coming in. And that's really what led me into ceremonial magic, was because I needed to learn really quickly how to, create grids around myself that kind of kept out what I didn't want out, and allowed me to open the door when I wanted to who I wanted to be working with. And so having someone that can help you learn that to begin with, and then turning to people like yourself and other, there's some amazing practitioners out there that really help to that really can help you with a depossessory kind of situation.
Okay.
I am not one of them. I am not a depossession shamanic practitioner. That's not one of the things that I have been gifted with. I've been sort of given the charge of, here's how to enter into a wanted relationship with a know, like, and trust being that you want to be with. And if you get into the position of not wanting it, then I have resources to send you to folks that can help you there.
Okay. So what about the three-letter word sex? How does that enter it? Because I get, so many women especially coming to me and they said, "Oh, Monique, I just had the most fantastic orgasm in my dream last night." And I'm like, hmm. So talk to us about the sexual aspect, or is there?
Yeah, no, there absolutely can be. I mean, and everybody's a little bit different. Some spirit marriages, that is a very big piece of the dynamic, and some it's not. And again, it kind of depends on the spirit, and it also depends on really what you're needing and looking for in the relationship. I remember when I talked to the one of the Vodou practitioners, Nanette, she was like, well, if that's what you need, the spirit will bring that to you. But it's not just about the sexual aspect. And we really, we could spend I could spend a lot of time unpacking what's going on energetically in sex to begin with.
Hmm.
But suffice
Yeah.
it to say, when we have that kind of vitalizing or orgone or eros or even orgasm type energy in the encounter with a spirit, it isn't necessarily about what we think of when we think of like sex between two humans. And
Hmm.
Caroline talks about this, that they can use vitalizing energy or eros energy to actually empower and heal and awaken us and sort of clean out our central channel, again, in a relationship with a loving, vetted entity. I'm not talking about incubi and succubi here. Those are a whole
Hmm.
other topic.
Yeah, that's a whole new different world, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you mentioned Orion Foxwood earlier, and he wrote the foreword to your book. Tell us how Orion's work coupled with yours into getting this book out to the public, because it's a fantastic book.
Yeah, well, 20 some odd years ago when I started experiencing this phenomena, I was like, oh my goodness, this is not just an academic interest. This is something that I'm experiencing, and where are the resources out there for me to understand what's going on? I mean, I'd found Ida Craddock's writing, and
Hmm.
I had found some of the Vodou practices, the
Hmm.
Mariage Loa, but I didn't feel called, and I wasn't being called by any of the Loa, the spirits of those practices. I was being called by this other sort of nondescript, but maybe angelic, maybe fairy kind of energy, and a very wise colleague of mine from the ceremonial magic tradition said, I think you should check out Orion Foxwood, because he talks about this in the context of Faery Seership, and his Faery Seership lineage comes out of Scotland and then through Appalachia.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. I went to a Panthea Con where Orion was speaking, and I met him, and I talked about how my spirit kind of like leaped when I heard him speak. I was like, this is my teacher. And so I apprenticed to him and did his 7+ year Faery Seership apprenticeship training. And he really became one of my core mentors and spiritual teachers during that time to really help me discern what was going on with me.
Hmm.
And so, when I wrote the book, I had included his story. He very graciously agreed to tell me his story about his marriage to his fairy wife Bree. So that
Hmm.
story is in the book, and then he also wrote the foreword.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Now your website, Dr. Megan Rose and spiritmarriage.com. What are we going to find there?
Well, there is some a lot of interviews and videos taught me talking about this, and I have a series that I call Sit and Sip with Dr. Megan Rose, where
Hmm.
I talk about different spirit marriage related topics, from eco spirituality to sacred sexuality, and as well as interview people about spirit marriage. And then I have a self study course called Spirit Marriage 101, and you can
Hmm.
learn about and sign up for that there. And I also have individual consults that I do with folks So you can go to the website and request one of those. And I have a group program for people who maybe don't feel called to one specific spirit marriage lineage, but want to meet other practitioners and learn how to develop devotion, discernment, and discipline. And this is sort of an ongoing group program with just some amazing people who are, most of them are in spirit marriages of one kind or another, some with beloved dead, so it doesn't really fit into a specific lineage. And I'm trying to think what else is on there. I think that's pretty good.
That pretty much covers it.
Yeah.
It does. So you are available to work with people should they want to take this a step further. And folks, check out our course online. And again, she said it's self-paced, and you can delve in as quickly or as slowly as you want. Megan, I really appreciate you being with us here today. What pearl of wisdom would you like to leave with our audience?
I think that, now is really the time for us to set down our preconceived ideas about what's real and what's not real, and our need to prove things down to bits and bytes, and really open to the mystery of the cosmos and the fact that it might actually be that we're embedded within it and we are its beloved, and that stepping back into that deep, loving, co-creative relationship with planet, with cosmos, with each other, I think really is the salve that we need right now as a species to perhaps open us to our whatever we're going to be. Barbara Marx Hubbard called it the Homo Spiritus, the awakened human.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and sharing about spirit marriage. It was definitely something new for me. And to the audience, I thank you and I appreciate your time and attention. Always an honor for you to listen in to what we're saying here on Get Over It. And for everyone, please remember that the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of exploring spirit marriage. Abundant blessings, light, and love to all. Agape.